Okay, everyone, welcome back. So now we are going to get started with our question and answer video. So yes, I'd like to welcome back Teresa and Erik. Thank you so much for joining us again today. So what's going to happen in this video is I'm going to read off the questions that students have posed, and then Teresa and Erik will respond to the questions. Some of the questions we have edited and pared down just a little bit to keep it simple and smooth and concise with everything else. Just so you're aware. And I've not added students' names to the questions just to keep it confidential and anonymous for anyone who wanted to kind of disclose some information about themselves and their questions with this topic. All right, so we will get started. So question one was for Teresa, and it asks, when raising Erik, did you have a particular method of reinforcing positive behavior that worked best for him? For example, ABA therapy and communication, tokens, or just positive reinforcement?
Well, I have to tell you that we love your questions, and they're all really good, thoughtful questions. And this one made me think right off the bat, what did I do? And did I actually really think about what I was doing consciously, or did I react? And I think mainly the second. And I am a trained teacher, was a teacher before I was a parent. And so I think what was happening for me with Erik is I was tuning into this child in front of me. And I think I was probably incorporating a little bit of everything, a little bit of ABA, looking at what might be driving the behavior, the antecedents, what came before that might be causing what I'm seeing here. And tokens, I love tokens and I love all that kind of stuff. And two of my children do, and Erik was not so much into that. And I'll tell you what he was into. And I like rewards and positive language and setting positive expectations is something that you've been taught, and I was certainly taught in teacher training. So I think a little bit of everything, to answer you honestly. And I kind of liken it to gardening, because I love to garden and I've learned something, and I like to fertilize things. I use a lot of Miracle-Gro, but it's not such a good thing for every plant. And I didn't know that. I assumed if I treated every plant the same, they would all do well. It's not the case. Some things don't like fertilizer or too much water or too much sun or whatever. It's the same with children. You need to tune in and you need to find out what makes them tick. And so if I tried to use tokens with Erik, it wasn't that successful. If I used them with my son Scott, he was over the top. He loved that kind of stuff. Doesn't he? He still does. You know, he loves contests, and we would draw thermometers, and as the red line went up, he really got excited. And it was usually something extrinsic, like a pizza. He really was motivated by food, and or a trip somewhere or an activity that he was aiming for. And same with your sister Heather, Erik's sister. She liked the extrinsic things, and she liked the challenges and awards that she would get, and rewards if she was trying to modify her behavior. With Erik, I found things were a little different, and it was more intrinsic. It was more if I told him, oh, I can really see your growth, or you didn't used to be able to do that. Look what you can do now. And he felt the sense of inner pride. And I knew that was an important thing for him, less so the tokens. So I just have a few things I want to make sure I cover everything. So number one is to tune into who you've got and find out what makes them tick. And I have here too that some of the things that I found worked really well. And then I'm going to give you 8 quick examples. Visual, make it visual for Erik. That worked out really well. And make it fun. If it can be like a game or an activity, why not? Make it logical, and the child needs to know the reason for doing this. And that is very respectful, and they really appreciate that. Not just do it, but it will make things safer for you. It will make things go more smoothly for you and the family. Whatever the reason, let them know why they're doing this. And organized. Erik loves things organized and structured, and so do we. We all do, yeah. So we could organize expectations into charts and make it visual. That was better. Make it interesting. Make it about something that is important to them, whether that be a fascination like trains. And I'll give you the example right now, actually, because I don't have anything to show you, but I have a little story. When all of our 3 were young, 2 boys especially loved playing with trains, and we had this plush train set, and they would join together with Velcro. So when they did a little job on the potty, they would get a train car. and another train car. And by the end of the day, they were really excited if they had a long train. And I think they got 2 trains for, well, you know, and
Yes.
and then we could see, and then they could have this visual for what they were trying to achieve. And it was something that they loved. So that was a kind of a fun thing, and it worked really well. Okay, so I have some other examples, and I'm going to run through those because I think you'll enjoy them, and they were all quite different. The first one was a lot of kids with autism, remember that multiply by 10 thing. Erik was startled by a lot of sounds. And so there was something, I think, it's glare. This is what he was doing. Sorry, Erik, I blocked you out.
Yeah.
In his occupational therapy group, they had something called soundtracks, and they were trying to desensitize children to startling sounds like buzzers and whistles and things that they would hear in the playground and just around in general. So they have these bingo cards. Maybe you could just open that up and play the sounds, and the children would have little tokens, and when they heard the sounds, they would put the token on there and play bingo. The point was to play it so often that it just became a sound and it wasn't startling anymore. Oh, thank you. So there, for example, is the train and lots of different sounds. And some of them were just quite pleasant sounds. So they was just trying to show them that this is all just a sound. And what you're trying to overcome is your reaction to it. It's not what happens to you, it's how you react to something that is really the powerful force. So if you can control your reactions, these sounds won't bother you anymore.
Right.
So we thought, we can do that, we can make that. So we made something we call, sorry, I blocked you out again. I'm trying to not get the light. Erik Hedley's Around the House soundtracks. Thank you. And we recorded sounds that bothered him, like the garage door opening, the dryer, the washing machine. I used to cut their hair, the clippers, because they were kind of noisy. We got the washing machine. There was the old spinning kind from the top. Other things, and also nice sounds, pleasant sounds. And we took pictures of these and made bingo cards the same way, recorded them. At that time, it was on a cassette player way back then. And I got Erik these erasers, these kind of gummy erasers, and they loved the feel of them. Well, he would spend hours in his bedroom. Remember that, Erik?
Yes, I would.
Coming home from school, playing this cassette tape and getting and choosing and finding and pairing the sounds. Got to the point where you laughed at those sounds that used to frighten you. So to answer your question, your overall question about changing behavior, this was modifying his reaction in a way that was fun for him, a way that was organized, visual, and meaningful. And then he understood that it's just a sound. So that's a long example. I've got some faster ones too. Of course, the What's Not Allowed books, and that's the title of the memoir, What's Not Allowed. We have many, like there's a pile there, about 7 of these books, and we took hundreds of pictures and made these little books for him. The point being, to celebrate who he was, but then I could use this to shape his behavior as well. So we had this in the van. Remember this, Erik?
Yes, I do.
And it was on the seat in front of him because there were certain toys I didn't want him to take in the van, and he would get angry at me because he wanted to take these Playmobil toys, but I didn't want him to lose them, and they were too expensive to take outside. So if I made it into a little rule like this, then bingo, you changed your behavior. Oh, it's a rule, So that works. So tap into what's meaningful for them. So we also told you that we had these picture strips. I think we said this in the presentation, around the house, and what to do after school, what to do before bed, and things like that. And so the visual structured thing appealed to Erik. And when he could see it, he could do it. When he knew what the expectations were. So I was changing behavior that way and reinforcing, good for you, you're doing this. It's always that language. And I always reinforced effort instead of outcome, really, because we can only control really our effort. And especially on tests and things at school, really, that doesn't matter about the mark, it matters about the process and that you just didn't give up. Oh, I know, the clicker counter.
Yeah,
Likes this one.
Great.
Yeah. Okay. So this one here is one of those clickers you see. Yeah, that records every time something happens. Now this was, and you still like it. It's very satisfying to click that thing. The guys in Costco, or now we see them going to every store to see how many people are in the store. Well, this one we use, it was not my idea. I was told this at a workshop, that he would need to have a register of what he was doing, be made aware. And so one of our goals was for him to initiate conversations around the house, because
Yes.
we were always drawing him in and he would stand there silent. And so you started to say something like, here, you can hold it up, you know, Heather, would you like to come and play in my room? Click, you know, because
Yeah.
he started it, he made the conversation go. And so it was the same as the train with the potty train thing. By the end of the day, he could see maybe 15 times or maybe only 2 times today, I initiated a conversation.
Yes.
That was one of our goals, and that was one of the positive behaviors that we were trying to bring out. So I think those are the main ones. Oh yeah, there's one more. And there, we'll do latest greatest later.
Yes, we will.
Yeah, there's one we'll talk about later. But this one I think you're gonna really like, and it's just so simple. It's called the finished box. And it's a little box filled with little strips of paper. And I was told this at a conference that, and I told you this before, children with autism tend to repeat and repeat and repeat the same thing, especially when it comforts them or when they find it, they just like the way it sounds. And after a while, the children around them kind of think, well, that's enough of that, or you've said that, or that behavior seems a little strange. So I wanted to make Erik aware that he was doing this because he didn't even know. You didn't know.
No, I didn't.
No. And so we have these strips of things he said probably in grade 4, grade 3, or something like that.
Grade like 6 or grade 7.
Okay, it went on quite a while. And so here's one here. He said again and again and again, you scared away French teacher number 2 with a letter you wrote. That's what he said to me. So I guess I had sent some kind of advocacy letter to a French teacher and he figured I was too harsh with her.
Yeah.
And he found it quite funny that I scared her away. He said it again and again. So what you do, the idea is, we don't have to read them all. The idea is you type it out or you write it out and you show the child and you say, you know, this is what you're saying again and again. I think we've said it enough. So we're going to give this, it's like a little funeral. We're just going to put it to sleep for a while, or however you want to say it, lay it to rest, probably. You write it on here and you have the child, now pretend you were little again, put it in here and say, now it's in the finished box. We're not going to say that anymore. And it was really very interesting for me to know that you didn't know you were saying this and that it worked. And then you'd get to a point where you'd be at the dinner table and you were just about to say this and you'd look and you'd say, I know this is a finished box topic, but, you know, so he'd preface it with that. I'm going to say it anyway, or I won't say it anymore because I'm aware that I've been repeating this.
Yes.
So this was, it's one of those things a colleague of mine calls cognitive bridging, where you take something that's really, it's abstract and you make it concrete for the child. This repetition is an abstract thing. How do you make someone aware that they're doing that? Well, you lay it to rest and it's something that he could read. And then it became a great source of amusement. He laughed at it a lot. So I think coming back and tying up this whole question, tune in, find out what makes the child tick, try to draw in their fascinations, be respectful and tell them why they're doing this, and lots of positive reinforcement. These are all varied examples, and I don't know, it was fun. And it was fun to try to make it a game.
Yes, it was.
And something enjoyable. So I think that's it for number 1.
That's great. It sounds like you have to do a lot of investigating and experimenting, and I think that
always, yeah,
for all children. But yeah, that's
yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so question 2. This one's directed towards Erik. So working in early childhood education, do you find some days can be harder or more overstimulating working with children than other days can be?
Well, yes, I do find that some days are harder and some days are easier to work with the children than others. And this is because some days, like, I might like have more rest than other days, and at other times, like maybe like some of the kids are feeling unhappy because of something going on at home in their personal lives. So if like I'm not feeling my best, or if they're not feeling their best, then like there's going to not be like not really kind of like positive feelings there.
You told me that we were talking about this question, and I was so focused on the child that I didn't consider the instructor. And I thought, well, absolutely, because you're the one that has to shape and guide that behavior. If you're tired, if you're hungry, if you're worried about something or distracted, you're not at your best. and that contributes. It's a puzzle, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so it was a great, thoughtful answer from you. So you've got a few more things here, I think. This one about the weather.
Yes.
Remember?
Yeah. Rainy weather might make us feel unenergetic and cooped up inside.
And how does that affect the children?
Well, sometimes they might have a lot of energy and they can't like run around in like wide open outdoor spaces. So more enclosed spaces, like there's not nearly as much room as there would be outdoors.
So you can't get out on the trails and things, and they
Right.
can't get that energy out. So that makes it maybe stressful for everyone inside.
Yes.
Everyone too close together. And then you had a list of things that sort of overstimulates you as an instructor. Would you like to share those ones?
Some things that would overstimulate me as an instructor are being asked to do too many things at once, or not being clear about what I'm supposed to do or what my role is, and not being clear how to handle a certain situation with a child the best way.
Sometimes it's hard to find just the right language, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, because you know that every word counts. And I think you had a good thing there. You said to me once, sometimes when you're not sure what your role is, or I know you said when too many children are asking you things at one time, I feel
scattered.
Yeah, and that can be very stressful.
Yes.
Or overstimulating too. So lots of layers of things there.
Yes.
No question. I mean, it's joyous working with kids, but it's exhausting too. It's really tiring. Yeah, I know. Yeah. So I think that's it for number 2.
Yeah, I think that's true for all of us. I've definitely had my moments where I'm just, I'm at my limit, and everyone has those days. Okay, so question 3, directed at both of you. So can a child with autism receive comforting gestures and develop trust and interpersonal connection? Or is it mostly the list you made of things that he or she needs that fulfill their emotional needs, such as rules and orders and routines? If they do develop an interpersonal connection, how might it look? In what ways might it be communicated?
Wow, great question. And there are many answers. There are many layers to the answer. For sure, it's more than just those pillars. And those pillars, I'm going to get my arrow off my face there. There we go. Those pillars were predictability and rules and routine and order, and all those things are really important. But it is much more than that. And I do think, however, that you need to be careful and you need to warm up slowly. And that's something, keep in mind that multiplied by 10 that we talked about. You're going to keep that in mind a lot, that just a touch or a pat or you're trying to comfort might create a startle. I remember Erik used to have a huge startle reflex, and especially if it's not someone that they're familiar with. And Erik had a great line. He said to me, accepting comforting gestures, especially from someone you don't know, is like warming up to something new and unfamiliar. So it's a real cautious response. So I think both of us agreed that let them lead, let them show you, and don't come on too strongly. Don't try to win them over. They will come to you, and definitely they will, but it's that timeline. Everything is multiplied by 10, even the timeline for acceptance. So comfort might look like helping them find some quiet corner when they need it. It might look like reading them and saying, how about we sit over here, and you might have a weighted blanket or a cushion, and giving and knowing that they need that time, and they'll just be so thankful that you notice that. Or comfort might look like a shared interest, and it might look like if you had, let's just say, for example, Erik was in your preschool and there were books that had rules, and that you sat down with him and you went through these and you let him lead and you asked him questions, or if he couldn't speak, you showed joy in his interest. Well, you're making a huge connection there. And I think with your children with autism, you may connect more easily through a shared interest and a fascination that child holds than trying to offer physical comfort. That may come later, but I think you have to win them into that circle. And it's very satisfying when you do. You feel chosen, and you feel special. And I know that. I remember there was a girl that lived across from us in Nova Scotia, and I don't know if she was your age, Erik.
Yes.
And she was profoundly affected by autism. And this is before we knew Erik had autism. And we'd stand at the bus stop every day because we waited for the bus for her sister and for Eric's siblings. And one day, walking back up the street with this mom and this girl, Catherine, Catherine reached out and she held my hand. I almost cried. I just thought, wow, because she had not looked at me and I hadn't tried too hard, because she seemed like this exotic creature that I couldn't reach, but she just chose me. And I guarantee it will happen to you, but you need to give space and time. Yeah, but it was something that's, wow, I'll never forget that. So Eric's going to talk a little bit about this. Oh, I know. There's one story I want to tell. Yes. And I have a prop.
It's a great story.
It's a good story. And here's the pop. This is, well, my daughter's now almost 21, but this was her favorite little, and maybe you'll recognize it, Love Pal or something it was called, when she was in preschool, when she was 4. And she named this Abba. The reason it was called Abba, because there was a girl in this preschool who was nonverbal and she had autism. And we didn't know that. We knew she was nonverbal, obviously, but we didn't know she had autism. And she was very one of those isolated children, off on her own, happily off on her own. And the other children just let her be. But what Heather noticed is that this girl had one word and one word only to communicate. That was Abba. And she said Abba, about, and to everything, but in different kinds of intonation. You know, like Abba for joy, and Abba for disappointment, or Abba for, you know, but she would use that. And Heather was so impressed that this girl could communicate all of her needs through the one word, that Heather started kind of coming in a little closer and mimicking in a nice way, not mocking, totally enamored, and showing the joy, Abba. And everything the girl did, Heather would imitate and do it with her. Well, this girl was so excited that someone spoke her language and someone accepted her for who she was, exactly where she was, had no expectation, no judgment. And I always call Heather the early advocate for people the way they are, for acceptance, for neurodiversity, before we even knew what the word was. And she was like that with you too, Erik. And it kind of reminds me of that Brené Brown quote. I think it's, we are enough. And she was telling this girl, you are enough just the way you are. And I love the way you are. So it got to the point, and this was a very interesting evolution. And Heather would tell me about Abba girl every day. That was the only girl she would talk about, because she was so intrigued that this girl would wait at the preschool door for Heather to arrive, hold her hand, and off they would go together, Abba, 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 talking away. When Heather was away, the girl was miserable, apparently, and waited like a little puppy at the door for Heather to arrive. So we would have to phone and say, tell, you know, I don't remember her name, Abba, that Heather won't be there. So this is the symbol for this acceptance of who we are, where we are, and expecting nothing more, and celebrating that person for who they are and what you can learn from them. And Heather learned so much about communication, and that most of it is nonverbal.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the Abba story. And you have, Erik was going to show you with the whale and the, when he was little, and if he'd been in your preschool, he would have played with these all the time.
Yeah, the whale and the dolphin.
Yeah, you loved Under the Ocean. We still do. I have a humpback whale sweatshirt on. And so if you were there and you were crying or you were upset, and a teacher started playing with these with you, how would that make you feel?
It would make me feel like my feelings mattered and that I was being appreciated.
And that your fascinations mattered too, right?
Yes.
And that they kind of noticed those things about you. So this may be your way of connecting through some kind of object or toy.
Yeah, toy, like showing interest in their interests.
Yeah, yeah. And that may be the way you get in, and then eventually you may be, you know, that cuddle situation, but I would just let that go for a bit, and you'll make your way there. Okay, so that was, I think that we've got everything here. Yep. So that's it for that one. So yeah, that's it for number 3.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so just highlighting that importance of child-led.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so for Teresa, how is executive function affected in those with autism?
Well, just a review for you, executive function is those higher level thinking skills. So this is a great question. Things like judging situations, not judgment, but judging, and being able to infer things just between the lines, and prioritizing, organizing, systemizing, planning. Those are very difficult skills and require lots of sub skills. And they're definitely affected by those with autism. primarily because of the two things that we talked about the other day in the presentation. Well, the other day was probably a couple hours ago for you, but it was earlier this week for us. And one of them was symbolized by this. And this was our, remember, our I'm not a mind reader symbol. And Erik would wait for me. This is that theory of mind where Erik used to think, and those with autism, that we share thoughts, that what I think is what you're thinking, and what you're thinking, I can tell. And but obviously I can't. We have different perspectives. So because those with autism find it difficult to step into other people's shoes, that will make it hard to apply those higher level thinking skills. And until they're able to see perspective, then we can work on those skills and they become sharper and better, stronger. The other one was that the central coherence, where they might get bogged down by those little details and which makes it hard to see what the big picture is. And you need to be able to see the big picture. You need to see the point of what we're doing.
Yes.
You can't get stuck in the small stuff. So the other things I've noticed, and with Erik, and I used to consult to families with children who had autism around Ottawa, and things I would notice about their children, and they would notice as well, were that they had a hard time following step-by-step instruction and creating order and following sequences. And a lot of this was because they couldn't hold those commands in something called working memory. They just couldn't hold it in short term. It would just slide away. A lot of that is what Erik was saying, the words evaporate, like they didn't even happen. So if we can find a way to help these children hold those things by having a visual, having little cards. For example, when Erik was doing math problems and, maybe 2-digit multiplication, well, he had to know his times tables in order to do that. And if he couldn't recall them, we had little visuals or things that would help him do that. And now, you can have it on, it's all digital, but at that time, we had little flip charts and things like that on his desk. Flexibility is really hard changing the way things are done. And of course, we need to be able to do this. We need to be able to read situations, and that is very difficult for those with autism, reading nonverbals. And I know even for you, Erik, when you were learning to drive, and we really stretched out the timeline for this. Oh yeah, I did it over about 2 years instead of 8 months. And it was difficult every time we came to an intersection, because every time it's different. And if you apply the same rule every time, likelihood is that things won't go so well. Yes. And so we had to practice. What do we see here? What do we need to do? And we really had to speak it out loud. And that's one of my recommendations for you as an instructor, to think and speak and live out loud around children with autism. And slowly, though, I'm speaking fairly quickly here because we have a lot to say, but I would speak more slowly and say, I'm doing this because, make everything obvious, and help them read the situation, puzzle it out together out loud. Multitasking is hard. That working memory I've talked about, very literal, very hard to work with abstract, because everything is taken exactly black and white the way it is. I remember one morning dropping off Erik at school. Yes. And you remember this, you know what I'm going to say, don't you? Yes. And we could see his principal in the crosswalk. And I said, okay, Erik, I would kind of role play or prepare him. You're going to get out of the van, you're going to cross the crosswalk, and Mr. Barry is going to say, good morning, Erik, how are you? And I said, what are you going to say? He said, I'm going to say nothing. And I said, why? He said, because I said that yesterday. And I said, well, no. I said, you have to kind of play the social thing. He thought, why are we doing this every day? He needed to know that this is what we do and this is polite. Anything else will be seen as rude. Oh, but you just thought, why are we doing this every day? We said that already. I said that already. Yeah. So I will say nothing. I said, oh, no. So we had to do a little role play. So very literal, very sort of black and white thinking. And it's pretty logical too. Difficulties with time, and about time passing and managing time and getting everything done in time. The time word keeps coming up. And so that's why we made the time timer. Yes. This was in yesterday's or the presentation. Show them time, show them how much time is left, because it's a difficult time for all of us, but really difficult for those with autism.
And keep track, and when you run out,
I know
there's the red, and when the red goes down.
Yeah, so you need to see that, don't you? You need to see that.
Time's up.
You need to know that.
Mhm.
Can you pass me the links?
Mhm.
So I'm going to show you something really cool. And this is totally perfect for preschool. These are all, pardon me, they're all kind of crumpled, but because they were in a suitcase. But I've shown these to many different educators. Now this comes from, and maybe you do this already, this comes from something that my grade 2 teacher taught me many, many years ago. And it's making time and time passing visual and fun too. So my grade 2 teacher used to do this when we were anticipating an event. So let's just say this top one was the field trip. And for some reason I have these in color bunches. I'm not sure why for this particular example, but maybe they're all the same color. This is field trip day. How many days until the field trip day? Well, that many days. So every day, and we would write the date, backwards, right to the day. Every day we rip off a link on the chain and it shows time passing, and we make a ceremony of doing that.
Yeah.
Very exciting for children to do this. And we can see maybe we have things we have to get done before the field trip day. How much time have we got to get things done? So it helps to show time passing and how we can get organized before. We use this a lot at home, to count down to good things like vacations, because the kids were getting so antsy and excited. But we also used it for things that were kind of not so good.
Right.
And just to show that we could get through it, we could endure.
Like how many days until the end of a school year, 1 year?
Grade 8?
Yeah, grade 8.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah, there was a classic grade 8 year that wasn't so good. And so we counted down to that. And I think as humans, we can do anything as long as we know how long. And if we think it's going on forever, it's like, ugh. But that's why, and especially that's why during the presentation, I showed you this is building block 2 of 4. We're here now. You can hang on, you can get through this. And so we need to know how much time, and we need to know context. I've got other things written down here. Judging is hard. And it's hard to pivot. It's hard to, like with the pandemic, just take things and move in another direction. And that's difficult for all of us, but really difficult for those with autism. And rules, and when they're changing, and judging, do I do this now? No, yes. I have something written down here, Foursquare. And I don't know if you ever played that in your playground, the 4 squares with the ball and everybody's in there. Well, Erik couldn't figure that out, and the rules were always changing, and kids were cheating, and everything was arbitrary. But he wanted to play. So as a family of 5, we would go to the playground like at night when nobody was there, and we would set up the Hedley family playing Foursquare and kill ourselves laughing, pretend we were the cheaters and everything, and show Erik every situation. But it really helped him to be able to figure this out and to make decisions and know that things were going to change.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of practice and a lot of sort of role play. I have this things to do, model all of these kind of skills. Think out loud and talk out loud and tell them your thinking process. Demonstrate it, role play, go in and try it first, like we did there. Social stories, and we're going to talk about that with this going to school book, because one of the questions is a great one about how do you prepare children for kindergarten, and so that kind of thing we're going to talk about. And how they solve the challenges. Okay, good. I think that's about it. There's all these things, but they apply to some of the other questions, so I will stop there. So just to summarize, yes, executive function is hugely impacted because of all of these challenges that we've talked about, but we can help by walking them through, speaking out loud, making things visual, and just being positive.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so that's it for that one.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, question 5 is to both of you. So I find that empathy is a fundamental gesture in the ECE's role. What is Erik's experience in that regard?
I'm going to say a couple words, then Erik's going to jump in. I just have to tell you that I was told that Erik would not be able to empathize, that those with autism show no empathy. And you will hear that and you will read that, but I hope that you will not believe that, because to us it hasn't been the case. Maybe it wasn't intuitive to him, but it can be taught. I think almost anything can be taught with patience and love and understanding and the right way in. And it works. And Erik's going to tell you how that evolves with him. But I'm just going to give you a quick anecdote of when he was 17 and how I was blown away. Once I was making dinner and I was tired at the end of the day. I was chopping up ham for a casserole. And he came in and he said, you look tired, and yeah, I did, and it's been a long day, and I bet you really don't want to be doing that. And you were sitting across the kitchen island from me eating nacho chips or something, and you said, I think that you would probably rather be sitting here eating the nacho chips than making that casserole.
Yeah.
And I was so surprised. I thought, he was stepping into my shoes and all that. And I said, well, you're right. And he says, would you like some help? I think you would probably need some help. And I thought, wow, you know, he was stepping into my shoes. He was showing empathy. He helped. He made the casserole. I think we even drank wine. Back in those days, he drank some wine. He doesn't do that now. But you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah. And he was just jumped in there and did everything that I was told he would never be able to do. And so I never say never. And yes, empathy is really important. That was part of the fundamental gesture. And I think you appreciate it when you receive it and you are able to give it.
Yeah.
So he's going to give the examples from his perspective.
Yes. Thinking about another person's perspective is something I've learned rather than what I felt early on. I was always told to think of other people and how they must be feeling. My sister Heather modeled empathy by doing things for me because she thought I needed it. For example, she showed empathy towards me if she thought I felt left out or needed to be cheered up.
Yes. So what was the example once? I remember in middle school, there was an example of something that really affected you and made you feel really good.
Okay. So my sister did this word search puzzle out of the names of middle school teachers, and I had to like match up their names and things like that. Just little things that she knew that would amuse me.
And she used to make, yeah, and she knew that you loved that puzzle.
Yes, she did.
Yeah, and she used to make, well, she still does, make compilation videos for you because she's a big YouTuber and very good with videos and videography. And she'll make compilations for Erik at the end of the year of your favorite videos or ones that she's been in or whatever that you've enjoyed, because she knows that that will bring you joy. So she does a lot of things to show perspective and empathy.
Yes.
So the result is you feel it, right?
Yes.
Yes. And if you feel, what do you feel when she does that?
I feel like I'm being appreciated and admired.
Yes, admired, and you also feel happy.
Happy, respected.
Yeah, all of that. Yeah, when she does that. And does that make you want to do that for someone else?
It does encourage me.
So I think if you model it, then, and that person feels it, you have to feel something to really be motivated to do it, I think. And because you felt that, then you did the kind of thing you did for me. And I think Heather was probably your teacher in that respect.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was the recipient and it felt really good. So yeah, that was that one.
Excellent. Okay, next question. So to both of you, working with children can often become overstimulating or overwhelming for many ECEs. Do you have specific strategies on how you can help yourself in the moment or at the end of the day?
Yes, I think Erik's going to lead this one off and start with that one. He's going to talk about in the moment and the end of the day too.
So it's tiring to be a role model and always trying to make the best decisions and use the right positive language. For example, in the moment, trying to understand things from the child's perspective and figuring out what their behavior means, and try to pay attention to what they love and feel that energy and fresh perspective.
So what you're saying, two things there, they're very different. One of them, if I understanding correctly, so when they have a certain behavior, instead of judging it as perhaps poor behavior or bad behavior, you try to puzzle it out.
Yes.
And you try to say, what's this really, what is this? Remember, we had the magnifying glass somewhere. What does this mean? And what's causing this? And what can we be doing about it? How can we accommodate this child? So I don't think you judge them as being bad.
Yeah.
You try to figure out what's driving that.
Yes.
And then, but that is wearing and tiring, because the question was about, it can become overstimulating and overwhelming, right? So what you do about it is try to lessen that by saying, well, that's a child and that's going to happen, right?
Right.
But I'm going to help them. And the second thing you do, you told me that you love their fresh
perspectives,
and you use that word
and genuine joy.
Genuine joy. So you try to tap into those children like the Abba story, and absorb all that goodness that they're giving us, because they are. And they're doing their best most of the time. I think we all are. So you try to balance those difficult challenges with absorbing the good stuff, right?
Right.
Yeah. And that's where you're at there. Yeah, there you go there. So I kind of stole the words before you were going to say them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I try to soak up the enthusiasm to balance the disciplining and role modeling.
Mm-hmm.
I also try to make learning from each other so it isn't one way, which can be draining.
Well, it can be, and I used to feel that as a teacher. I'd come home and think, oh, I feel like I gave everything. I used to actually call it Voldemorting, because remember from Harry Potter, he would take all the good from people
And feel worn out.
Yeah, those people would be drained, and that's how I
Yeah.
would feel, like Voldemort stole it all from me,
Yes.
Yeah, and so we have to replenish that as teachers. We have to go in with a lot of energy, because believe me, it's going to be pulled out, isn't it?
Yes.
So I think so you try to balance that, make it learning from each other, so it's not so much that one-way draw, right?
Right.
Yeah. So then you've got some later at home things, and these are really important.
Yes, it's when I get home after working at the daycare, I go to a quiet space or I walk outside to get some fresh air. I usually like to have some quiet time when I get home, so like not to be disturbed.
I know better than to talk to him.
Yes.
Actually, I don't meet him at the door, don't do anything, because you will just walk past me. And I respect that no, my talking is done, and I need quiet time.
Yes.
So we pretend we don't see him come home.
Yes, so I use my downtime by going to a small relaxing space like my room or my walk-in closet, and or I sleep if I feel tired and I need to recharge my energy.
I think you're very good at reading your body and listening to it.
Yes.
I'm not that good at that. I'll push on even if I'm tired and think, okay, I'm not done my list yet, and I'll keep going. But I think you're like your father. If you're tired, you sleep. And I think we could all learn from that. I need to do that more. I need to respect what my body is telling me. And I think that's a great message that you're giving the other instructors. If you feel tired when you get home, even a 20 or half-hour cat nap is really going to help. And it's going to set you in a good way for the rest of the day.
Right, to not be like too hard on yourself and listen to how you're feeling and what feels right for you at that time.
Yes. No, good for you. And I wish I could become more like that. I need to become more like that, because it is like recharging your battery, isn't it? Yeah. And I have a few things. So thank you for those. Very wise words. I try. I exercise, yoga, going for a walk, like Erik says, and being outside in nature, gardening, because I can be digging or pulling if I'm kind of frustrated with things, maybe in digging if I'm exploring. I think it's probably all connected. But I can be thinking as I'm working and creating something beautiful or order. And it's that creating order again, but I can be reviewing the day as I'm doing that, but not talking to anybody. I don't want to talk either. So I get that. And I think as a professional, as an educator, I just accept that this is part of the package. I know it's not going to be easy. And as my husband says, if it was easy, anybody could do it. And I think as educators, we're all pretty special people, because we're interested. We love kids, and that's why we're there. And we're interested in their perspective, and we're interested in making them the best they can be.
Yes.
None of that's going to be easy. And that's why we're us, and that's why we're doing this job, all of us and all of you. So so it is part of the package. And so Erik said something great at the beginning, and at the very first question too, it depends on how you go into the situation. Or the second question, how well you've eaten, and if you could just sort of leave your worries behind, and if you've slept well. So I think knowing that this job is going to require a lot of energy, we have to try to be our best us going in, and that's the best for the children as well. So that's my 2 cents at the end. So that's it for that one.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so the next one's directed to Teresa. You mentioned that it's helpful for children with autism to have a specific plan for the day, like a visual schedule or a toy menu. Some children don't do as well when everything is planned. Is there a way to balance both for either type of child?
Yeah, what a great question. And I'm so glad whoever asked this did. Well, all of your questions. Because yes, not everyone's going to want everything planned out. Some kids are totally, or some of us totally spontaneous. We won't want to be stuck in that the rigidity of a plan, and we might resent that. So what I would say is you have these things available, but they're not necessary for everyone. And that's their free choice. So you could have the visuals, and you may have the little mini versions by those who really need it, the transition cards or objects or whatever, but the other kids aren't going to need that. So you have it there, and then it's used by those who really need it. It's critical, might be used a little bit by some and not at all by others, and that's okay. Everyone's different. But I do guarantee you that some of them will need it sometime, and it might surprise them that they need it. They might be really upset or tired, those things Erik talked about, and just look for some kind of structure and need that on that day. I think about, for an example, outside of the classroom, when you go into the mall and there's the round disc for opening your elbow, if you want, the door, and it's for people primarily in wheelchairs or that need that. I mean, that's critical. They need that, and we all understand that. Most of the time we don't need it, but sometimes we need it. Sometimes we're going in with a bunch of boxes or whatever, and we hit it with our foot or our hand or whatever, and we're so thankful it's there. And sometimes my mother would go in with a walker, and she needs that. Or I would go in with a baby stroller. I needed that, or something. So there's going to be a day when we all need it, but most of the time we won't. And out of respect, so we put it up there, and that's why I think, out of respect for those who really need it, have it there. And just kind of quickly going back to that example of that toy menu in the presentation. Do you remember there was a part in our house with all the pictures of the choices, and there are the 3 timelines, and one was for Erik, and one was for his brother Scott and his sister Heather. They didn't need it, no, but I didn't want him to feel signaled out as the one who needed it, that as if, I don't know, I thought it would be better if they all did it, and they really liked it. They thought this is really cool, and they played along. But it was critical for Erik, not critical for them. And they were kind enough to make Erik not feel singled out. And then they enjoyed it too. So I think that's my answer, is that have it there. Some will need it, some won't, but eventually I think everyone will a little bit. But you're right, different strokes for different folks. That's the end.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, next question. So in the program I work at, we have a 3-year-old who's on the autism spectrum. He is sweet, kind, and brilliant with letters. What he's having trouble with is peer relationships. He so badly wants to join in, but he always ends up taking things too far and upsets one of the older boys, and will actually end up hurting one of them. For example, play fighting. It seems he doesn't know when or how to stop when things escalate. What are some ways that I can help him form these relationships and learn how to play in a way that the other children will accept?
Great question. And I've seen that before. I've seen kids with autism just not getting it and actually hurting other children and having no idea that they even hurt them, and no intent. There was no intent, ever that intent. They just want to be part of it. So I'm glad you asked this. What I'm reading into it is that this child doesn't know the rules for playing, and he doesn't know the proper moves, and maybe those could be taught. And that's kind of like the ABA, peeling back the layers and just seeing what we can do. And so in this case, he doesn't understand the rules of engagement, and you'll find children with autism don't reference others very well, or not able to, can't imitate others and don't imitate others. They just have this image in their head and they go for it. So what you might want to do is call the other children over, the other 2 boys over, because the children love to be asked, and they have really good ideas, and they come up with really good solutions often that we don't even think of, and actually good punishments as well. not the word punishment, but reinforcement or whatever, if that's needed. I remember when I used to teach, and I used to say, so what are we going to do about this after school? 1,000 lines, they would say. I said, no, it doesn't need to be that severe. But they come up with something that's usually very thoughtful. So I think if you said to them, okay, this boy, let's call him Jeremy, is having difficulty play fighting in a way that works well for all of you. Can we teach him how to do this? I think they would love that. And what if they gave a demo? And what if you as the teacher took some pictures of appropriate poses and everybody practiced those? You could have a little chart. Here's how we play fight, and here are the rules. These are the appropriate ones. maybe then he would know what to do, and he'd say, oh, and the kids might strike them as funny that, oh, look, he's doing this one now, or they could show him. I think they would want to help. Most children really want to help, and they want other kids to succeed. And if they were part of that process, that winning team, that makes them feel valued as well as someone who can help. I was also thinking, you could, if the boy is verbal, you could talk to that little Jeremy boy and say, how about instead of play fighting, why don't you teach them something? What do you love, and how can you draw them your way? And so if it was to do with maybe the whales and the dolphins there,
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe you could have something to do with whales and dolphins or dinosaurs, or hide the whale and they have to find it, like a treasure hunt. You could help set up something around their special interest that's fun for the other kids. Make it something that they love to do. Yeah. Or maybe talking whales or something like that. Yeah. Or I was thinking, going back to the original group of boys or girls, you could say to him, okay, maybe the wrestling is a little difficult for Jeremy. What else could we do? And what else could we set up? And I had some things like, oh, everyone loves follow the leader, or stepping stones, or a little treasure hunt around the room, or something like that. Maybe wrestling isn't going to work, and maybe it's just something different. And so those are 3 ways: modeling what's appropriate, going from the child with autism's perspective, and modeling, making it around their interest, or changing the activity entirely, but making it something that everyone loves doing. And then looking for success in that. But it's going to take some time, and it's going to take some effort, but I think it can work.
Yes.
So those are my 2 cents there too.
Perfect. Yeah, again. Okay, so the next one's directed for Erik. In your experience, Erik, what has led you to becoming as successful as you are? What can teachers of ECCE learn from you as a key or tool of guidance to be able to support others within the spectrum to have such success as well?
Thank you for your kind words. I think of myself as a work in progress, and I just keep working at my goals. Here are some of what has helped me along the way. 1, become self-aware. If you don't know what you're doing or seem like from the outside looking in, then you won't know your effect on others. Video feedback from family videos has made me become more self-aware about how I come across from other people's perspectives. And when I watch myself on videos, I realize how I look from other people and how
it's important for us to know that, isn't it?
Yes, it is important.
Something I'm just going to interject is something I was told once, was that often children with autism don't see themselves within a group, even though they're there. Somebody was saying that a child, the family went out for dinner, and so the teacher said, oh, I heard that your mom said that you went to Pizza Hut last night. And he says, no, we didn't. Well, yes, you did. Well, because he couldn't see himself there at Pizza Hut, he could only see his family. He didn't really register that he was there too. And it was very surprising. So sometimes it's like seeing yourself in a movie or in a situation. You feel yourself in it, but you don't see yourself in it. And so looking at the video, for me, I was surprised to know that Erik just kept laughing. There I am.
Yeah.
You were saying, you didn't know that you were there.
Yes.
You didn't know that you were on these vacations. Yet you did, but you didn't. You couldn't believe it until you saw it.
Right. Yes, unless looking at videos, pictures, or looking in a mirror, you can only see like your torso down kind of thing.
I know, and you don't know your presence until you see it. So for you, it was like the lights came on and there you were on stage, and he would look at these videos and become more and more self-aware about that you were kind of cute and funny and quirky and all this stuff, and there I am. And so that was a huge awareness piece. And you just mentioned mirror, and tell them about your desk.
Yes.
Yeah.
My desk where I used to live and that I grew up in my bedroom in my old house where I grew up in. At my desk there was a mirror that faced me, so that while I was working at my desk, I could see myself there in my room and realize how I look while I'm at my desk, or how other people see me.
And I would see you looking into that, like the looking glass, and seeing your hard working as you were pondering over your homework. And there was a lot of, well, pardon the pun, reflection there, but I think you were discovering yourself. This is how I look, and this is how my expressions look, and this is how frustration looks, and this is how thought looks, and this is how fatigue looks. And so you become self-aware with those mirrors, those videos, and so that was number one. Okay, the next one.
Yes, the next one. 2, be open to self-improvement.
Sorry, keep going.
After watching the family videos, I make goals from what I learned about myself, like starting conversations.
That's the example we gave before. So you might have noticed in the video that you were kind of quiet. So you think, I need to be starting conversations more. And so we would do something like that.
Or taking the time to ask people about themselves while talking to them, starting conversations, as opposed to waiting for them to ask me.
And we also have something here that those are good points, that it also helps when self-improvement is modeled by everyone in the family. So we're all a work in progress, and that was a great way that you said that. And we're all improving all the time. We never arrive, we're always arriving. It's always continuous, right? And so I think if we were all, and we were always, and we still do, trying to make ourselves better. So it's not just a project about you, about the child with autism at all. And so I think we always made you feel that we were part of a team that was working toward those shared goals. Okay, how about number 3?
Okay. 3, I always have growth goals. We're all a work in progress, and we're always growing and changing. Some goals from when I was younger are making my own breakfast, or packing my lunch, or packing my own backpack for school and taking charge.
And those we showed a minute ago we helped them do this by having the pictures around the house that helped them achieve those goals. So I'd like that you to show that growth calendar. Yes. And this is kind of recent-ish, within the last 3 to 4 years or so, or as a teen, early 20. Top one there.
Yes.
Hard to see, but what it is a calendar page. And we used to print them out. You can take it down.
Okay.
And what kinds of things would you write on there?
Things that I did on my own for the first time, like driving independently to a certain place, or being open to try a new, like, kind of part-time activity for fun in the community, things like that. So
things that were new and different, you would write down, and that obviously is growth, right? Because you took a chance and you did it. And when you write it down, it's almost like I got the idea from when you guys were young, as babies. You have that first year calendar, and you write down everything the baby does: first smile, first coo, first this, first that. And you have that, and that's their growth. Their growth in the first month, growth in the second month. So you started to do this, and you were so pleased to see at the end of the month all of these firsts. And so you can record growth, and it's very inspiring to keep growing, right?
Yes, and it's also neat to look back on and see kind of when those first times were.
Exactly. Okay, number 4 on your list is?
And number 4 on my list is make my own timeline. Everyone's path will be different. I give in a lot of time for myself to reach my goals. I make my goals step by step and repetitive. For example, for a Parliament Hill speech that I presented, I practiced each week for a month on location there.
Yes, so this was something that the speech he talked about in the presentation. And we went up with a microphone because we know we have to do it on location. And we knew it wasn't going to happen overnight. So we practiced that for a month. So you factor in a lot of time. That's the bottom line, right?
Yes.
And in grade 12, we did the same thing. We gave you 2 years for grade 12.
Yes, I did a bonus year of high school to allow me to finish my kind of like courses and have co-op work placements so that I can get a sense of what it's like to be at the workplace and have jobs in the community.
So to make the abstract concepts around learning more concrete, this is what you're working toward, or this was what it could be like. So the point being is to give yourself a lot more
Mhm.
time. And we talked about that in the presentation as well, giving those children time within the preschool between transitions and everything. Everything's going to take longer. Multiply by 10. You know, it's
Yeah.
often the case, but it doesn't really matter because we say, yeah, oh yeah, life isn't a rush, right?
We don't want to get to the finish line first.
No, I don't want to do that. No, no, no. Okay, number 5.
Number 5.
This is 5 of 7, by the way, so we're almost
Yes.
there.
Learn how to ask for help. This is about self-advocacy and asking for things that I need to succeed,
Mhm.
like things written down or extra time to work on things or models of the end product and kind of clear visual instructions and demonstrations so that I know that I'm on the right track.
So I think in order to know, asking for help is hard. It's hard for all of us because we want to be so independent.
Yes.
And we don't want to show any weakness, but asking for help is a human thing, and it's a good
Yeah,
thing.
it is.
And everyone wants to help.
Mhm.
And I think you have to be self-aware before you can ask for help.
Yes.
You need to know what you need, you
Mhm.
know? And so these are all interrelated, these things, and they've all led to who you are right now. Okay, number 6.
6, learn how to self-regulate. We are all adjusting to the environment all the time. Learning how to do this, to self-regulate, has helped me a lot. Things that I would use to self-regulate include taking sensory breaks, using like a weighted products to make me feel calmer, like
I just got one. Actually, I just pulled it out of the drawer.
Yeah.
It's a weighted cushion and it's all fluffy. I made 3 once again for all 3 of our kids for the car and for the van, especially when we had to drive across Canada because we're an armed forces family and we'd move. And so I filled this with craft beads. So it's fairly heavy. And then when you
Yeah.
have something like this in your lap, it's very grounding, or on your chest. It's kind of like when you go to or on your head, when you go to the dentist and they put the x-ray cape on you, and how good that feels, how grounding that feels. But I often found you in your bedroom like this. It was on his head for more sensory input to his head. And that told him where his body was in space. Otherwise, he said he felt like he was floating. And I've heard that with a lot of children with autism.
Yes.
So those kinds of things are what your kids there in the preschool may really love and crave, more deep pressure. And we have a friend and a colleague who says, when in doubt, use deep pressure. It will always calm a child. So you use those self-regulation tools a lot.
Yes.
Yeah. And number 7, the last one, right?
Yeah, number 7. Keep working and never give up. No matter what, just keep going. This is about persevering and working towards your goals and just carrying on and like just thinking like as time passes, I'm getting closer and closer.
Yep. Keep calm and carry on, I think.
Yes. And
Yes.
working towards a goal with determination and the more I do something about it, the closer it will get. Or
keep
more,
chipping away.
Yes, the more likely it will come.
Wonderful. Okay, that's that one. That's number 9. We're ready for the next.
Okay, yes, very well said. Okay, the next one is for Teresa.
Yes.
I have one amazing and smart girl with autism in my childcare center. She is registered for kindergarten this fall. Knowing how hard it is for transitions, could you give me a few suggestions to help with this transition?
Yes, well, you're very kind to want to help her, and I think her being in preschool is already the perfect start. She's used to routine, she's used to a program, so it shouldn't be, if she's not been to preschool before or daycare, going to kindergarten would be a big deal. But she's been out of the house and she's done this, so that is the perfect first step. So she already knows more than she thinks she knows. But here are some things that we did and that worked well and that I've learned from others. The parent, like myself, would go in to the school before, like in June or May or whenever you register the child, and meet with the staff, with the teachers, the special education specialists. It's usually called the learning support teacher, and LST, and create an IEP, an individualized education plan for that child based on the child's needs and requirements and how you can accommodate the environment or the way you do things. And it would be all those things we talked about. It would be using the schedule. It would be maybe fidget toys. It might be the quiet corner, all of those things that the child might need. So you make this IEP. And then what we did is I went in at least twice with Erik. The first time I scheduled an appointment, went into the classroom, met the teacher, no children there. So all you're doing with this first round is looking at the environment, and you're going to be taking pictures of everything. And maybe if your child is old enough and uses the iPhone well enough or iPad, and it's better with if the child can do it, take pictures of what they think is important. The legs of the chairs or the patterns, or you want the general classroom, you want the cubbies, you want the routines, you want where the coats go, you want the centers, you want the washroom, you want where they eat, where they wash their hands, you want the bathroom, the toilet, everything. We took a picture of everything. Yeah, everything, and made little videos if we could. So that first time you're just capturing the environment, and you're making the unfamiliar familiar. Then you want to go in again with the child, this time with the children there, and just see how it all runs. And the child doesn't have to participate. They can sit back with their mother, like you did with me, and we just watch it. And I kind of say, now they're doing this, now they're doing this. And they might be introduced, but they might just be sitting back as observers so they can see how it all goes. And then you want to make a social storybook with all those pictures that you took. And it could be one online, or it could be a hardcover. You could make those anywhere, or even like grab one of those.
Yes.
This was before you could do that. We made it into a little book, and we just stuck the pictures inside. And what does it say there, Erik?
My name is Erik Hedley. Come and see my new school.
So it was like an invitation for someone else to come in and see his school and everything. My school is called Valley View. It is on Valley View Drive, and everything about it. So we won't go through the whole thing.
At the main office.
Yeah, it takes you on a little tour. And so Erik, at that time, you were switching schools, and I think you were grade 1.
Yeah, grade 1.
So
I was 6 years old.
Okay, so it was next year.
So the classroom, the front office, the hallways, the schoolyard.
Yeah, and thank you, Erik. And so the child, I know for you, you flipped through those books and through those books and through those books, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I would read them to you. You memorized them, read them, and before you were even reading, I think, loved them. And,
yeah, I still do.
Yeah, I know. We still have all of them. And so the child will love that. Then I would visit again later in the summer just to see if anything has changed or been updated, because you don't want surprises.
Yeah.
And then there's often staggered entry in September, so not everyone starts at the same time. And that is really kind of key, that it's not too overwhelming and too much. I have here the bottom line is, and I've said this already, it helps to make the unfamiliar familiar. The more you go in, the more it becomes a place that you know. And if you can see it, you can do it. And it just helps to ease in that way. So I think those things would be very helpful for the child. That's it for that one.
Excellent. Thank you both. Okay, next question. So in Canada, they advocate an inclusive education system. And in my country, Japan, this approach is being promoted. However, the reality is that there is still special needs schools. What do you think are the merits and demerits of an inclusive education system from the perspective of children with special needs and their parents?
Well, that's a great question, and it's been our experience as well, so I can speak to that. So thank you for that. I think the bottom line, I'm going to say at the end, everything is perfect on paper. You can make a perfect pitch, but in reality, life happens, and things are different. So let me give you our experience. I think if I had to say which is the best, I'd say a combination, some kind of hybrid model. And that's what Erik had. In high school, he was in a program called an inclusive school. So within the larger school, a smaller program whose name I did not like, but I did like the program. It was called the Learning Disability Program. And I thought, can you not call it something positive? So we called it the Learning Enabled Program, or Enabling Learning or something, but we never call it Learning Disability. Who wants to attach to that? Not many. So, but it was a very good program. What it was is math, mathematics, English, science. Your core courses were very small classes. 5 children, or not children, junior high school. Yeah, yes. You were in high school, grade 9, 10, 11, and 12. So 5 to 10 students, usually around 5 though. And then for the electives and the larger class, like shops and PE and art and things, you'd go into a regular class.
Yeah.
And there would be an EA, an education assistant in that class, just to keep an eye out and make sure everything was okay for everyone. So those small ones were very nurturing. They slowed down the pace. They did the same material, but in a different way, and stretch out that timeline. So for Erik, this was really great to be in this inclusive environment, this larger school, but have smaller classes where it really counted and larger ones where it was a bit more free flow. So that worked out really well. So I think you asked about the merits. So I think the merits of integration into a larger school like that is that you're going to get these role models, these what we call neurotypical role models, and you're going to get lots of practice in that neurotypical environment. There might be more funding and resources because the school probably is going to be larger, and you might have more class variety in terms of what electives you can take. And there may be more extracurricular as well. And their bottom line is there's that feeling of inclusion, which is what we want. That's our aim in society. So it's like a thumbnail sketch of the big picture. And that's what we're all aiming for, that we're all accepted and we don't have to be pushed over to the corner. No, we should all be accommodated together. So the downside, and I'm glad you asked that, was that it was fast. The pace in the school was fast, maybe too many twos that I was telling you about, too much noise in the hallway, too much chatter, people and bodies, and so it made it kind of an overwhelming experience. And for those people, that was their social time. That was wonderful, but that was maybe difficult for others. And I found that, and Erik, maybe you can speak to this, even though they were included, Erik and his group were still like a small pocket over to the side.
Right.
You had your lunchroom where you went because it was a safe space, and I'm glad you had that.
Yeah, me too.
Oh yeah, so
great.
that was critical. But you were not really integrated into lunch hour activities so much. You did your own thing. The rest of the school did their own thing.
Yes.
So although it said integration, you were kind of over to the side. And when I looked in your yearbook at the end of the year, you weren't in a lot of that. You weren't in a lot of those things.
Right.
So they didn't really make it an integrated model. It was pockets within that. And maybe some of your behavior or what you were doing was misunderstood. So there could have been more education around that. And you can't keep up socially. It was too difficult. And like I said, bottom line, too many twos. The classes, when you were in those, were too large, too fast, too overwhelming. And there was this feeling of a parallel existence. So, and there was a lot of sensory overload in the school. So I think, once again, I'll say, I think it was the best situation for you, but it wasn't perfect. But I think it's getting better. And perfect on paper is never perfect in practice, but I think we can develop this. Yeah. Do you want to say anything about that, or your experience there?
Well, sometimes like I find that like the structured time is kind of like almost like better than the unstructured time.
The work is play and play is work.
That's right.
Oh, those noon hours are hard, aren't they?
Yes, they can be.
They can be, yeah. So I think that's our answer for that one.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so the next one. So have you ever thought about obtaining a service animal if you don't already have one?
Okay, we're both going to speak to this. I don't think it was available to us because Erik's autism at the time was not considered severe, and that he would need that. He was completely verbal and functional, and so that wasn't an option for us. But I did go and read a bit about it, so thank you for opening my eyes to this. I haven't really looked into it because I didn't need to, but constant companions for children with autism, and when you're kind of alone a lot, to have this wonderful animal, and animals are loyal, and at the end of the day they never let you down. So that would be a wonderful thing to have for all of us, and many of us do. And help to improve social interactions, and having this relationship where you have to care for this creature and talk to this creature, even if it doesn't talk to you back, but it will communicate back to you. As we know, most communication, 90% is non-verbal. So you're communicating with this animal, showing it love and attention, and it's going to show that back. And expanding verbal and non-verbal communication, you're going to be talking to the animal and teaching life skills, so it's going to help you do that. And increasing interest in activities. So you're going to learn to do different things to care for this animal and maybe out in the community with this animal. and it's going to decrease the stress on your family. So because it's going to take over some of those responsibilities. So although we didn't do this, we did something a little bit similar, and Eric's going to tell you about that.
Yes.
Right?
When I was growing up, I did therapeutic horseback riding, and I also did horse vaulting, which is like gymnastics on a horse.
And how did you feel about those programs?
Oh, I enjoyed doing them. I felt like I was involved socially with people in the community. It was a nice activity to practice kind of balancing on top of the horse and engaging with others
and reading that communication, the horse's ears, and you had to give it commands, and you had to communicate with that horse, and,
yes.
and you were kind of acting as one. So you really need to be in tune with that.
Yes.
Yes. And I know for the voltige, it was like Erik called it gymnastics on a horse. We called it Cirque du Soleil. He had a special saddle, and you wore kind of rubber shoes, didn't you? And you stood up on the horse. You actually stood on the horse with sidewalkers. So it improved your core. We all need that. I wish I could have used that.
Yeah.
Your core.
Yeah, your muscles
and your balance. Yes.
Your body.
And also you did somewhere you were lying across the horse, like straight out like that, called superhero. Remember that? And to do that on a horse and coordinate yourself with the horse, I think was challenging and satisfying. And I know you loved it. I know I like watching it. So that would tie in with that question. And then you had some other things that came out of that.
It helped me with like a posture and toning, reading nonverbal communication, teach life skills such as creative and grooming for another, and increase interest in activities.
So you had to care for that horse, and you couldn't just walk away. They made you do everything at the end, and that was an excellent thing. Well, I understand, Aaron, you're a horse, aren't you? I heard that from Vivian. You know a lot about horses, so you could probably chime in here. Yeah, but I think it's a great question about animals and our interaction with animals and what they can teach us and do for us. And so not dogs, but yes for horses for us. Okay.
Yes, so that's the connection for everyone who doesn't know. A friend of mine has done a lot of work with Teresa and Erik, and she's the one who made the connection here. It's Vivian, who you just referred to. Both Vivian and I are horse people, and we were on the board of directors for a therapeutic riding farm. And we both still do a lot of volunteer work with that farm, and it's my passion project. I've been involved with therapeutic riding since I was a teenager.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I love hearing these stories about it and how much fun it is.
Oh, it absolutely is. Well, thank you for your work on that, because for us, I think it was a huge difference maker. And Erik always loved going. And even though I'm terribly allergic to horses, I'd have to take an antihistamine. Oh, terrible. Yeah, I know. Oh, but I love going too, and watching and seeing the growth in him. And so, yeah, no, a great program.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, so next question, coming from one of the students. I am a person with autism, and when I was younger, I used to feel that anything I did was wrong, and this caused me to become a quiet child and to avoid others. Did you ever have this thought or issue?
Yes, I did. I did feel like I was breaking rules, or that I didn't know the rules of behavior and I was doing the wrong thing. So this relates back to what's not allowed, and wanting to know what the right thing to do was. So maybe I was also more quiet because I spent so much energy trying to figure out the world and like what was I supposed to be doing here, or like what they want from me, kind of thing.
What's the right thing to do? Yes. I think I just love this question because it's such an honest question, and saying, did you ever feel this? And saying that I became quiet and avoided others. I was very shy, if you can believe that. I was really quiet because I spent a lot of time looking and trying to figure things out. And I'm a real perfectionist, and I know you are, Erik. I didn't want to get it wrong. I wanted to get it right. And now I know that it's okay to get it wrong. It's not wrong. It's just first try. But I think this is a great question, and the way you relate it to those rules, that's why you were asking about the rules. And there's one thing I want to say to this too, is that Erik's father always says, someone has to listen. So we all have roles, and we can't all be talking. And people that observe are probably noticing things that the talkers aren't noticing. So we all have our strengths and our
Yeah.
roles, and I respect that.
Mhm.
You know, still waters run deep, right? And did you have anything else? Oh yeah, let's talk about the latest, greatest. So do you want to just get those down there and I'll introduce this?
Yes.
We want to talk about something, and this was one of the strategies I could have told you about in the first question, but I wanted to wait for this one. And so Erik said here, he's got it written down, you know, because he was always feel like he was doing something wrong and being put back on track, or that's how he interpreted it, that he was appreciative that we celebrated his interests, achievements and interests. So he's going to hold up something here, and it has this little sign.
Yeah.
That's back when you're about in grade 6, I think. It's called Erik's latest, greatest. And we had these it's like a time capsule we found the
Yes,
other
they
day.
are.
We have these 3 frames, one for each of our 3 who are now almost, well, like I said, 21, 23, 25. So these are at least 10 years old.
Yes, they are.
And they're still dusty and everything like that.
Mhm.
So we had these frames in the kitchen, and I said, you know, about every 2 weeks, bring something and put it in there that you're proud of. So let's celebrate something.
Mhm.
And it could be something at school, an achievement at school, but it doesn't have to be. It can be
Mhm.
anything that is important to you. And for example, Scott's brother is
My brother.
yeah. Erik's brother, Scott, is a professional poker player. This is when he was starting, and his graph of earnings and everything like that. He was really proud of this. So it could be not what they thought I wanted to have in there, what they wanted to have in there. Good, we can put it down. That's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you. And so to celebrate the child or the young man and the teen, it just helps to balance all that feeling of maybe not getting it right. And
Yeah.
So I think we had that. Oh yeah, I know. There's one other thing we want to talk about too. Another way we celebrated Erik, he said he told you he liked oceans and whales. He also liked planets and space, right?
Mm.
So we made his room into like a planetarium and had blackout blind and sealed it all up. And then we got this little projector, and you could project onto the ceiling
Yes.
the whole constellation and everything.
Yeah.
And we had these 3D glasses that came with this, and we would all, especially you, but we would get in there as a family, lie on the floor and look up, and Erik would tell us about space because he knew more than we did. And there was also a little film strip that went with it, I think, and a tape or something like that. And it could also transform into the ocean. There was a thing about the ocean. But the point being that we celebrated what was important to him, and we learned something from him.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So is there anything else?
Mm.
We covered it?
We're like this puts a lot of emphasis on trying to teach someone with autism social rules. So there is a feeling of always getting it not quite right and being put back on track.
So that's why the celebrations are important, right?
Yeah, to celebrate their interests.
Yes. Good. Okay, I think we've covered that one. Thank you, Erik.
You're welcome.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so Teresa, at what age was Erik when you thought he had autism? What made you think this? Is an early diagnosis important? What difference could an early diagnosis make? And at what age is a diagnosis possible? A lot of questions in one there.
Yes. And I noticed that I've made notes here, and I've started with the last one. So we're going to work reverse here. And I said, yes, it's important to or for some children, yes, you can see it quite early, and as early as 6 months to a year. And things you're going to notice are the absence of the developmental markers. So there won't be the babbling. There won't be, what is really important is called joint attention, where the child is pointing to something and showing you. And I think I was telling you in the presentation that when Erik said what's not allowed, before he hadn't said anything except for one word, and that's that's, and that was that's, that's, and it was that's important to me, that. So he was definitely showing joint attention, so I wasn't concerned. But you'll see kids not doing that, not drawing your attention to what is important to them. And you will also see maybe lack of eye contact, lack of connection, lack of wanting to be cuddled. And it may even seem like they have hearing issues because they might not respond to their name. And it might just be that they don't have hearing issues, but they're so locked in their own world that they don't hear you. They're not aware. So those are the kinds of things that the pediatrician will check when you do your well baby checks. And if you're not meeting those milestones, then you have to keep looking, and then maybe have your child screened for something like autism. It's important to diagnose early, yes, because it's important for, no matter if it's the word or not, to me, I just want to know everything about my child so I can make the best possible environment for that child. And so it doesn't matter who you are, what you are, but I want it to work for you. And if I've got the room too bright or too hot or too noisy, you're not going to do very well. So I need to create that environment that's going to make you the best you.
Yes.
And so all that sensory stuff, the sensory stuff is huge, because you know yourself, if you're too hot and too exhausted and your tags are scratching you and things are going on, you can't focus very well on anything else. And it's like that with children. So I can help them to self-regulate if I know something about them. And another thing I think is really important is to keep them in our world, keep them from becoming that little isolated island within all of us. And you do that by going through what fascinates them. And that's why we always let you lead, child-centered, and it's not giving into them. There's specific things, expectations. It's different. It's leading, showing an interest in their interest, and that's very respectful. We all want that. Knowledge is power. I love that expression, and it's the power to understand what you're seeing and the power to do the right thing and the best thing. So the more you know earlier, the better. As Erik said, accommodations that will make a difference, like a visual schedule, and then managing the sensory stimuli, like the light and the sound and the temperature. For example, I remember Erik on a swing, the sun would be in his eyes and it wouldn't occur to him to turn around and swing the other direction.
Right.
But I could teach him that. And so that was sensory overload. He is very pale. We all have pale blue eyes, and too much light is exhausting. Yeah, I know. I was telling you how I had that sensation the other day. I had a well-eye check, and you get the drops in your eyes, and your eyes are dilated, and so much light is coming in. And I had total empathy and understanding for someone like you or someone with autism who was very light sensitive. It's exhausting. I was going to do errands after, and I had shades, on. I could hardly do it. I was so tired because there was so much input. And so that was a really good point of connection to you and to understanding you and how important it is. So for a young baby, they can't even tell you that. But if we can make things better for them by knowing, then that's good. It also changes the way we see, and it changes the filter, the lens through which I see my child. Because if I know there's something going on there, then it doesn't become the child won't do that. It's the child can't do that, because it's a structural brain difference. And if it made me so much more understanding, and I felt immediately quite badly for some of the frustrations that I felt, and that I try to make you do something that your brain wasn't wired to do,
Right.
or not yet. So I think it's a hugely understanding thing to know. They're never misbehaving, or I've heard say acting strange. That no, it makes sense, and they're always reacting to their environment. To your first question, now we've worked through those other four. When did I think it was, what age was Erik when you thought he had autism, and what made you think this? Well, that's a great question. Not until he was about 3 or 4. Although when I remember that record, when I go back and look at it, now I see it. If I knew what to look for, I would have seen it a lot earlier, but I didn't know. Not till about 3 or 4, because at that time we were living in Ontario, just north of Toronto and Barrie, and we moved to Halifax. And when we moved, your whole world, there's that octopus arm was pulled up.
Yeah.
It was completely your undoing. He was like a child that was unraveling, like a ball of wool that was just getting smaller and smaller, because his world was completely changed. So I knew something was up, because his reaction to that move was quite extreme. And he would start to, in our new house, run in circles. You did that a lot, and run with, and start examining your hand and exhibiting behaviors that I had never seen before.
Right.
And you also seemed very parallel to other children when you should have been integrating more. It's okay to be parallel until a certain age, but then you should be sharing with other children. You didn't know how, which is why we stress with you in the other recording, give them a role, help them do this, because you just didn't know how.
Right.
So you stayed parallel. And I feel so badly now. That's why it's good to know. I could have helped you more.
Yes.
Yeah. And he just wasn't responding to others around him. Yeah. This is like the little ball of twine becoming smaller and smaller. So now looking back, I wish I had known, but I think we did the best we could
Yes.
at the time. So that's that one.
Okay, great. Okay, so if you have a suspicion or curiosity that a child in your classroom has symptoms of autism, how would you go about informing parents, or where would you go from there? Would you suggest the parents get a diagnosis, or would it seem inappropriate to bring up?
Great question. And it's a very emotional situation. To be the bearer of those suspicions or that news. So I guess my inclination would be, if it was me and I could see this and I thought this, I would talk it over with all of my colleagues, my coworkers, and that would be something that the superintendent, not the superintendent, but the supervisor would take forward with the parent. And I think I would just make a point of recording everything you see and date it, so you have good records and what it was and what you thought it might have been, or what might have led to this, or what the child was trying to communicate. So have it all thoughtfully down with an open mind, and then want the supervisor call the parent and tell them what they're seeing, and ask the parent if they've seen this at home, because chances are they have. And it could be something that they're trying to bury and really not ready to see this, but I guarantee you nothing came as a surprise to me. And it was hard for me to hear, because I knew it was there, but I didn't want it to be there. And so you're opening doors. It's very delicate. So I would take it slowly and step by step, have as much written down, and maybe send it to them first in a respectful way, so they have time to digest it, because otherwise it feels like you're being hit by a lot of information, and it might be overload. It might be too much for them to hear. I would not, I sit here, and you could suggest they may wish to explore this with a doctor, because it's obvious that their child is having difficulty connecting with other children. I wouldn't try to diagnose it, because it might not be what you think it is. And there's a lot of conditions that mimic one another, that have overlap, and it could just be a sensory integration disorder, not autism, or it could be something else. So I wouldn't try to give it a name, but I would try to give it everything that you see and have it all documented, and it's up to them to take it forward, and they may or may not want to do that. They may or may not be ready to do that. I think that's the bottom line. They know that they need to, but maybe not right now. And I don't think you can mandate readiness in anyone. And they will at a certain time, because they'll see that their child needs help and it's not going to go away. And so I think the best you can do is write it down, be clear, be honest, give it to them, and then it's over to them. But at least you've done it. And I would definitely have your supervisor do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's my number 15.
Yes.
Hey, we're on the last one.
Exactly, last one. So now we come to the last question, which is towards Erik. So what sticks out in your memories as a child where you felt like the adult was wrong, and not helping but hindering? And what are some things we as ECEs should avoid, and what are helpful strategies?
Well, as an early childhood educator myself, things that I should keep in mind, or other ECEs should keep in mind, would include: 1, needing a longer timeline. Pushing too hard and being pushed too hard and too fast is stressful for me.
So how many do you have there? So that's one of
5.
There you go. 1 of 5. There's context for you. Okay.
Yes. And so being pressured too quickly is stressful for me. Like I was saying, for example, joining the group at circle time and transitioning as quickly as the other children can be hard. Number 2, I need help with transitions. Making me change gears too quickly without warning is stressful, and can make me feel quite anxious and overwhelmed and kind of uptight.
You still do that.
Yeah.
I mean, you still need that.
Yes.
I mean, I don't mind jumping from thing to thing unless I'm tired. Then I don't like that.
Right.
But I kind of like that pace, but that's not your thing, and
No,
I
it
respect that. Nope. And you are pretty good at letting us know that you need that buffer, and so that's a great thing. You need those transitions. You need to stop that heavy, that moving train and change tracks.
Yes.
So I think that's probably number one. You're going to find that. I'll just quickly interject. I was, like I said, was consulting to families of children with autism in Ottawa, and they brought their concerns to me and we puzzled them out and I made plans for them. Almost every concern had something to do with the transition and we couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
It was about coming to the dinner table from where they were, about brushing their teeth, about summer, between seasons and the different kinds of clothing they would wear. It was a transition in clothing. It was everything about getting up, going to bed, changing. Everything could be a transition and it required help and delicacy around that. So that's a huge one to keep in mind. Okay, you're number 3.
3. I need you to have reasonable expectations. For example, playing with neighborhood children or classroom kids without helping me to know what my role could be.
So there's that magnifying glass. Help him to focus, help to give him that role.
Yes.
Yeah.
And number 4 out of 5. I need you to understand sensory sensitivities. You may not understand how much this affects me, and that I may feel like it 10 times more intensely.
You have some glasses to show them, I think, don't you?
Yes.
He wore these when he was little.
These little glasses, and
they're pink.
Yeah, everything around me has this bright pink coloring to it now.
I think rose-colored glasses. Could you say? Yeah, seeing the world through rose-colored glasses. Yeah.
Not sure it will turn out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
like
there you
this
go,
kind
like
of.
that. Yeah, thank you. It's much. Oh, I look better. It's much better. Yeah, I like the world that way. Yeah, it filters out the light that's harsh for you, and makes it easier. And so we have to. That was. You can take that one away.
Number 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know. The reality is difficult, but yeah. But you do need to understand that the sensory sensitivities and how profound that is. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And the last one.
Number 5. I need to balance on time with downtime. I need downtime. You may not understand how tiring it is for me to be social, and that I need to balance on time with downtime.
Huge. And you still do.
Yes.
I think I read once for every hour or 2 or whatever that a child is with people, child with autism, they need almost that time to themselves.
Yes, they do.
To come down and detox and charge up, but just really come down and then charge up.
Yes.
That social is hard. And I remember a friend of ours, remember Jan said that?
Yes.
A waiter, very social fellow.
And
I was talking to him after one of his shifts. And he looked at me, he says, I'm really tired. He says, social is exhausting.
Yes.
And I was so glad he said that because it looked so easy for him.
But when people are social, they're really on their kind of best behavior and coming across as presentable, and behind closed doors, they kind of let loose.
Exactly. And we're just working hard to figure out someone else's perspective.
Yes.
And to integrate that. It's a lot of work. It's hard. So social is hard. You need to balance that on time and downtime.
Yes, you certainly do.
I'm thinking of the bottom line here. And I'm integrating everything you're saying. It goes right back to the very beginning, to the very first question of how did I bring out reinforced positive behavior in you? I tuned in. And here, if we tune in, once again, you're telling us you need all this stuff. We tune into the child and see these needs and respect these needs and facilitate, accommodate these needs. Yes. Always tuning in. I see it like a zoom lens that's always moving, always back and forth. Then I think we're going to bring out the best version of this child. Yeah. And help them. Yes. That's why we're here. So I think we're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, that comes to the end of the question and answers. Right. So yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate your honest and thoughtful and insightful responses. And, clearly you put a lot of time and thought into developing these, and we really appreciate it.
Oh, there's such good questions that I know others would like to hear them. I mean, wonderfully crafted questions and so much thought. So it was the least that we could do, and we were happy to do that. And the more we had to think things through, the more clarity we have around these about how we did this. So thank you. Thank you for asking, and thank you for listening.
And thank you for taking the time to listen and learn.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you both so much. That comes to the end of our video.
Thank you.
Thank you.